到嚟我哋 One Night Talk 嘅特別節目，我哋今日繼續都係邀請到由 Jade Music Festival 嘅artist 嚟到我哋身邊。我係 Novelle， 今日我隔離有
Boey。
仲有我哋今日好榮幸邀請到 Lefan 同我哋一齊，咁我哋呢一個訪問啦，主要都會用英文嘅，咁所以我哋如果你有啲咩你想知多啲嘅話咧，我哋都會擺喺 info box 等你可以了解我哋呢個 artist 多啲嘅。Lefan, welcome you to OneNightTalk, and now can you firstly introduce yourself, because I think some of our audience haven't known you yet, so can you briefly introduce yourself and also share a little bit about what kind of music that you mainly compose or produce?
Ooh, okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Lefan. That's my Mandarin name. I was born and raised in Taiwan. My English name is Vanessa. So for my artist name, I kind of mashed them together. So it's now Van Lefan. I make a really wide range of art because I also I'm a multidisciplinary artist, so I do a little bit of everything. But musically, my singer-songwriter project, Van Lefan, is mostly like singer-songwriter, folky, but it also kind of gets experimental and explores different genres. Like I have songs that are more like dubby or like got Latin grooves in it, more experimental pop sometimes. So it just kind of depends on like what the song and the story calls for.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How did your music journey started? Would you mind to tell?
Yeah, I started singing when I was really young. My karaoke culture is really big in Taiwan, so like singing in my family has always just been something that we did to tell stories, connect with each other, and just like express our feelings. So I grew up singing, and then one day I remember I was singing in the back of the car, and my mom had this album on. It was Qi Yu, and my parents would just look back and like, oh, you actually have a really nice voice. Do you want to go into singing? So they put me into choir. And I also played piano like every other Asian kid as a child. Yeah. I hated it, and I wanted to quit by the time I was like 6 or 7. So they're like, okay, you got to pick another instrument. And I saw some girl playing flute on a TV show. Might have even be Ultraman. I think I was watching Ultraman one day, and somebody was playing flute. I was like, that looks portable.
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 I like that.
Yeah. So I started playing the flute in the school band, and I also started playing guitar to be able to play and sing, and I just kind of never stopped.
You like the portable instruments, eh?
Yeah, the portable instruments. The piano just felt very impractical. Yeah.
So you know how to play flutes,
guitar, and I sing.
Piano, sing.
Yeah, I can play like a little bit of piano, not publicly, but I do songwrite with it. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's cool.
As you mentioned earlier, you were born and raised in Taiwan. So I was just wondering like how that the culture or the background give you inspiration while you were doing your music.
Well, I think some of my earliest musical influences were Taiwanese folk songs. So whether like folk songs or like kind of folky pop like Tai Ching or like Huang Xiaohu, like the Li, like a lot of that was my earlier influences. And I also read a lot of like Chinese poetry growing up. My dad had this practice of like before bed we would like read old poetries like Li Bai and all that. So I think maybe the imagery driven poetic way of language really influenced my songwriting. Like I still, when I'm writing, I see pictures in my head, so then I will try to like kind of describe that picture or those like philosophical concepts, and kind of like poetic language that I'm sure was influenced by that. Comes to mind. Yeah.
I was just wondering, like for like this is a quite interesting questions like that just pop up on my mind right now. I was just wondering, while you were composing your music, like were you mainly thinking using your Chinese brain or using your English brain? Because for me, like there were a time that like people ask me like, what do you dream? Like what is the language that you dream in? And I was like, sometimes it's Cantonese and sometimes it's English, and then like so I was just wondering what has come to the case when it's composing, like were they more leaning on Chinese or like English directions?
I think same with when I speak, it depends on the context, like the context of like where the story is, what the story is about, who I'm talking to. I think all kind of influences, because certain things I find I can express in Chinese better, other things I can express in English better. It just kind of depends on like what I'm talking about, and I do have songs that I go back and forth because it's like kind of it just works. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so more accurate.
two language in one. That's your pretty much, you bring out a new style.
I was just wondering, you mentioned about like what depends on the contents. Like, so what would be some of the contents that you made and then you would be composing or thinking in Chinese, and what would be the other way?
Okay, a good example is I have a song called Medicine, and I speak Taiwanese, or I sing in Taiwanese at the end of the song. And even in the beginning of that whole album, Medicine was the last song on that album, and the first track of that album is kind of a spoken word poetry with like sound design, soundscape stuff happening. And I start in Taiwanese because I'm talking to my ancestors. So if I'm like talking to my ancestors or something that I feel like is coming from my ancestors, usually I'll do it in Taiwanese or Hokkien. And then when I was talking about my dad's family story, I did it in Mandarin. And then when I was talking about moving here to Canada, or if I talk about ideas that I kind of learned later on in my like 20s or something, when I'm learning in an English context, then those things I will put in English. So
Wow.
yeah, I kind of
So a lot of them are coming from your own story and own experience, right?
Yeah, most of my songwritings are like my way of like processing or remembering or understanding or retelling something that I thought of, experienced, or yeah.
I love that when Lefan talk about like how she actually brings out all the like heritage from the previous generation and passing down to her, and how that inspired her. I think that's really amazing. I was just wondering how you actually use those, like your cultural, and how you actually creating your, I would say like maybe you're creating your own genre. How does that make you feel like important, or like how did that like become one of your character in the music that you're creating?
I feel like in terms of musical genre or style, I don't know how much my culture plays into that. I'm sure it does influence because that's the music that I listened to for the first like 10 years of my life. But then I'm also in school for like contemporary experimental music, and that's nothing to do with my culture. But I feel like those influences also bleed a lot into what I make now, and also just like being exposed to different genres like reggae, pop, R&B, whatever. Being here or traveling around the world, those influences also get combined. I feel like a part of what I maintain is kind of my core values as a person, and my values and what I believe in and what I find is important in the world. I think a lot of that kind of came from my childhood exposure to wuxia, like wuxia 小说, like martial arts movies and novels and stuff, where standing up for the underdog, standing with the people, fighting against like government or oppressors,
Or about justice.
yeah, justice, about
Justice,
justice and valuing of like relationships more than material things, and like those things I think really influence my worldviews, and that very much bleeds into the work that I make.
Do you actually have like some of the future plan that, or like while you're doing your music, like is there something that become what you like when you're starting your music journey? Does that ever have a either like you already achieved something, or like is there some goals that you want to achieve in the future?
In my music? I feel like, especially these days, I mean, kind of always in my life, but more and more as I get older and kind of becoming more aware of the world, I just want my music or anything that I make and do as a person to have make the world a better place, because I kind of see the way that things are in the world and it's not sustainable. Like, we can't go on like this. And sometimes it feels like, as an individual person, I'm always trying to figure out, like, what can I do, even if it seems small. I somehow came into this world with a calling to be an artist and make music. So within that, like, how can I use this tool and gift that I've been given in this life to help create the world that I feel like is possible and is needed? So I feel like that's something, I don't know. And I don't know what that looks like. That could look like so many different things. But that's something that I really think about when I'm writing and performing and sharing. It's like, what am I actually putting out there, and what is this doing for the world, other than just like being self-indulgent?
Yeah, giving like a value to this world, basically.
Yeah.
Like influence people to have something positive.
Yeah.
And just don't mind me asking if there were anyone who come back to you say like, oh, you're your music has helped me through certain things, or like kind of feedback to you?
Yeah, those are my favorite kinds of feedback. Like I get them from like random people in my emails or Instagram DMs, or sometimes in person after shows and stuff. And those are the little things that like keep me going on the days that I like just want to give up and like, why am I even doing this? This is like, because making art in like a capitalist world is really hard. It's like it's rough out there, especially nowadays with like government funding cuts and stuff. So sometimes it's hard to like know why I'm doing it, and then when I get those like little messages where I remember them and I'm like, oh, you never know what you put out and who it reaches and what it can do. You know, if like a total stranger who I've never met on the other side of the world is impacted enough that they would take time out of their day to write me that message, there must be also other people that didn't say anything. And even if there aren't, like even that one person, I feel like makes it worth it. Like if it reaches one person, it kind of helps them through something or shifts their perspective and makes them a better person in the world, then like I did my job. And yeah, I don't know.
No, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
I would want to know, like, because for our audience and for probably some of the audience who is going to attend the Jade Music Festival, what could they be expecting from you, or like what will you be presenting to them as the first time they get to know your music? What could they be expecting?
Don't expect more than one genre. The style will change, but the message and the core intention will stay the same. And I think nowadays when I perform, I really treat it as like a very sacred experience. Like we are all in a room together sharing in an experience, and music is something that really connects us, and like that moment will never happen again in that configuration. So I like to invite people into this like container. It's almost like ceremonial in a way to me, that I want it to be a space where we can feel together, whether that's grief, rage, joy, hope. I think a lot of my music and shows now center around the ideas of hope, because the world's pretty bleak and it's a scary time. We're at a really, I don't know, like unprecedented, I feel like, is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but like a tipping point in history where we kind of sink or swim as like humanity. And I despair sometimes. I start to spiral into despair, and then sometimes music and art is what gets me out of that. So when I write or perform, I hope that that's a space that people can come together and reflect on those things, feel, be honest with themselves and each other about what they feel about what's going on, and also find like hope and connection in that place to hopefully be able to face those challenges from a place that's helpful and inspired.
Do you usually do music on your own, or like you do it with collaboration?
Like writing or recording?
If you don't mind sharing both.
A lot of my writing happens alone. And the last like year or so, I've been doing more co-writes, and it's been really wonderful experience. A lot of my writing before was solo, but then when I started recording my music, I realized I cannot do it by myself. So all my recorded music is very, very collaborative. One of my greatest friends and favorite people in the world, Thomas Holler, is my producer, and we met also just through community with people with very aligned values. So when we hang out, we also just talk a lot about these things and like pour that intention into what we make together. And then all the musicians we bring in to play on the tracks also are people that we feel like embody these values in their life and infuse that energy into the work. And we just love hanging out and getting to collaborate. And that's one of my favorite things about being an artist, getting to like play and create with people who I admire and love.
Like, don't mind me asking, like, so just now you mentioned that like you feel like that is a little calling for you to become an artist. I was just wondering, like, what would be some of the takeaway that you hope that the audience will have, or like in the future, is there any specific project that you want to work on to like continue with your callings?
Something that I got really into the past few months is immersive theater experiences. So theater for me is a really interesting art form because it has to happen live. It has to happen with people together, and it works with sound, works with movement, visuals. There's like lighting and set pieces and environment. And when you bring people into those spaces, you're able to kind of shift their perception of reality. And I feel like that shifting perception of reality and imagination is so crucial in creating change in the world, because anything we do, any, structures that happens start as ideas, and then making people, not making them, when you create an environment in which people realize that they have the ability to imagine something and then make it happen materially, I think that ripples out in a way that's like more impactful than we can know when we provide that initial experience. Because I think every single person is here for a reason, and they have their own inherent gifts and place in the world, and they just need to like find that and activate it. I think so many of us are stuck in having to do things to survive, having to do things to like please our parents or our teachers or whatever, and then we lose touch with what we're really here to do. And that causes a lot of like anxiety, depression, and like unhappiness in us, because ultimately there's a part of us that has a calling, and we just need to create that time and space to listen. And often it's not our fault that we don't, because we are born into a world where to survive, we're told that we have to do these things that maybe disconnect us from who we are. But maybe these little like artistic experiences and immersive theater thing where people can just drop in for an hour and like really connect with themselves and have that time and space to reflect. Maybe it can bring them a little bit closer to that path. Yeah.
Well, I'm really looking forward to see your performance. I want to be
I'm like
there,
hyping it up so much.
experience it. Oh,
I'm trying.
Okay, my last question will be like, if there is like one song that you would recommend for the people that who are knowing you for the first time, what would that be, and what is the story behind that?
Oh my god, the song that's out right now already? I don't know. It depends on what they're looking for.
Okay, what would be like, I did my homework, so I already listened to your song, but what will be like my case? Like for me, I am actually still struggling because I just moved here about 2 years ago. So I'm still trying to figure it out, what is my potential and what is my actual missions, like what leading us to the new direction. So what would be a songs that you would be recommending to me?
Okay, if you want something like more like gentle and folky and kind of speaks to your like inner child about that topic, I feel like The Lesson is a nice like kind of like soft thing. It's like one of the first songs I put out. But if you want something that like is like more like upbeat and like gets you going, I feel like Bodies of Water is a song that kind of really speaks about taking action from a place of purpose. So The Lesson was kind of more about like, it was inspired by the book The Alchemist, where where it's like kind of that one and Omens and Signs from my first album. Those were kind of inspired by The Alchemist, where I was looking at like nature, like the way that birds fly, by just taking these little things out in the world and like taking lessons about life from them. And I kind of like wrapped it into these like folky songs about like nature and the lessons that they contain and how they apply to our sense of purpose. And then later on, I kind of felt more politically activated. I wrote songs like Medicine and Bodies of Water that are more like a little bit more in your face and like groovy and trippy in their like sonic manifestation. But still, I feel like the intention is kind of the same. The message generally is that you have a purpose, you're here for a reason. And these are some tools maybe you can tap into to remember what that might be. But yeah, I have a new album coming out soon, and I'm slowly releasing singles, and there's more songs like that. So
Wow.
yeah.
Becoming a little fan here.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, definitely going to go dig into all her music from the song number 1 to her latest release.
Yeah, the first album, What Holds Us Together, is like was made to be kind of a journey from beginning to end. So if you have time to like listen in headphones and just treat it like a meditation, it's kind of, it's got some like interludes and soundscapes that are more spoken words. I made a little booklet that I didn't bring it, but there's a PDF on my website. But it has like all the backstories and like little essays and poems and like behind the scenes photos and stuff of where the songs were written or the process of recording them.
It's always good to know the like story, how you create them, and then it will give the different meaning to the song when you listen to it.
Yeah, if you go on my website in like I think projects, what holds us together, and scroll down to the bottom, there's like a PDF or images of that little booklet. So if you want to listen to and like kind of read along the stories and look at the photos of where the songs were written, it's there.
Do it tonight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Send me an email. Let me know.
Wow, we have learned a lot about her today. So thank you for being with us today, and I hope that you don't mind. We will put one of your songs into this video and also into our podcast, so that our audience will get to know your music more too.
Sweet.
Yeah. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a wonderful time.
Bye.
Oh, we'll see you. 我哋好開心今日可以同 Lefan 傾咗咁樣多，咁我哋一陣間都會擺佢哋 music 喺我哋嘅 podcast 入面，咁希望聽緊嘅你啦都可以好好地 enjoy， 同埋好似佢咁樣講啦，就可以好好地當自己做一個好好嘅靜修，等自己有一個安靜嘅時間去揾翻點解你會喺呢一個世界上，同埋你有一啲乜嘢嘅目的你想做到嘅。咁我哋下次再同你哋再傾啦，拜拜。